Have you ever met anybody that says they're a digital or media expert? Have you met any of those? Yeah? The reality is, if someone tells you that they are a social media or a digital expert, they are not telling the truth. And the reason is media, and especially the social media landscape, is changing so fast that at best, anybody that claims to be an expert is really catching up on what happened about 6 to 12 months ago. And I've worked with some of the largest companies in the world on various projects, and you pick their brains for advice, for insights, and literally they are all scrambling to keep up. Change is happening that quickly. So what we're going to do tonight is by no means an expert talk. It's simply an opportunity to explore, to learn, to discover some things, and to realize that it's an area that we can constantly keep learning in. And what I say to you today, within 2, 3, 5, 6 days may very well likely change because the landscape changes so quickly. But when you're involved in this space, you're able to maybe not at least be ahead of the curve, but keep up and be familiar with what's going on. And let me ask you a question. You go back 4,000, 5,000 years ago. You wanted to communicate a message. You wanted to interact with your community. What was the way to get the word spread to as many people as possible? 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. How would you do that? You're the king, you're a scribe, you're a leader. You want to get 100, 1,000, 10,000 people up to speed on something. How would you interact with them? Well, the picture is a little bit deceptive. A camel would help, yes. You'd send a messenger, and the messenger would be able to, at best, interact with how many people? Usually. With a handful. Maybe he'd be able to get a gathering of 100, 200, 300 people, depending on the context. And essentially, you would rely on word of mouth. That was how you got a message out. Word of mouth. Fast forward about 2,000 years later to the time of the apostles, first century. How did you communicate a message? How did you get something out to the world? What would you do? Well, see, they used written text significantly more than they had 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago, they would write things on stones. We've got the hieroglyphics. It wasn't exactly the quickest way to communicate. By the 1st century AD, they had papyrus, they had books. It was far more common, but they used books to store information, not so much to create mass communication. How much did Jesus write? What record do we have of Jesus writing anything? Nothing. How did he get the message out there? Foot power and mouth power, right? He walked everywhere and he talked to as many people as possible. And when he got his disciples to get engaged in mission, what did he get them to do? Go and talk. Talk, walk. And that's how the gospel spread in an incredibly quick amount of time, because that's how people communicate. Come to the Middle Ages, about 500, 600, 700 years ago. How did they communicate then? Well, they still use text. We have books coming into effect, books with a hard cover, with pages rather than scrolls. But they are still a primary mode of retaining information rather than mass communication. It was still word of mouth. What changed everything? What made the biggest impact on the Protestant Reformation? Why was it that even though there were major reformers before Martin Luther, it was Martin Luther that we most ascribe as having the greatest impact on the Reformation? Why is that? The printing press. Because Martin Luther goes and he puts this handwritten text on the Wittenberg church there. And what happens that night? Some hooligans go to the church and they steal what he's put up there. And they take it to their friends who have recently acquired one of the first copies of the Gutenberg press, and they mass produce several hundred copies of it. And within days, rather than months or years, which is what it would take for oral communication, the Reformation literally explodes. The printing press. For the last 500 years, if you wanted to communicate with someone, if you wanted to get a message out to the masses, you would use print. What were some of the main ways of mass communication via print? What kind of things have we been using in our lifetimes as well? You want to get the news? How did you get the news for the last 50, 60, 100 years? Newspaper. That was the main primary mode of communication. Then television came, but we've still relied on print, and books have been the greatest way to get information out. I want to show you a graph. This is just for the last, well, it's 2003 to 2013. And I guess this shows the most significant change. And this is a graph of how adults get most of their national and international news. Have a look at the change that happened around 2008. Quite noticeable of when we see the demise of print media. Now, it doesn't mean the print media isn't valuable. It's still not used. Of course, there are books, and we still use magazines. But if you have a look, at around 2008, for the very first time, people use what? The internet more than print media. It's the next evolution in how mass communication happens. Have a look at this chart, and I know you can't read everything on there, but I think most things are readable. This is how much companies around, well, this is just in Australia actually, how much companies are spending on advertising via different means. So 2008 is right about here. What do you notice happened to newspapers, the pink one? And the blue one is magazines, print media. Massive, massive change in ad spend. And of course, what comes up, and doesn't just come up, but this is exponential and then some. The internet. A significant trajectory, and you know that advertisers spend their money where what? Would you spend advertising money if it has no impact? No. So advertisers are spending their money where they think they are going to have an impact. And you see that newspapers are essentially, they'll be extinct as we know them in terms of print, magazines as well. Radio and outdoors are still holding on, not really climbing, but they're still there, which is interesting. And then television, you can see it's flatlining. And if you look at graphs of projections of what's going to happen, television as we know it is going to experience a significant decline soon as well. So if the world has changed the way it communicates, and we have the most important message to communicate, wouldn't it be fair to say that it's worth exploring and thinking how we can use this medium to communicate? It was an adoption of early technology, the printing press, that led to a massive explosion in the Protestant Reformation. Wouldn't it be fair that using technology in this way may have a similar, if not at least a significant impact in how we communicate the gospel? How do you think we're faring in using the internet to interact and to reach people compared to everybody else out there? What would you give yourself a score? What would you give us as a whole a score? A 5, a 7, an 8 out of 10? Where are we? 2? 6? 9? I guess it depends on the person, it depends on the church. I'd say we're probably significantly behind. It's definitely not something that we've done a lot individually. And the reality is it's a little bit scary. What do you do? How do you do it? We're going to explore some ideas that could be done in a personal and church level. Sure, we could talk about, hey, we could buy out Google, but that's not exactly achievable anytime soon. So we're going to look at some practical things. I'm going to start with one specific social platform, and then we're going to look at a few examples of others and what to do. By far, the single largest social media platform in the world is Facebook at the moment. About 2 billion active users. With a population of around 7 billion people, that means around 27% of Earth's population are actively on Facebook every month. And in Australia, would anyone like to guess how many active users in Australia? This is global. And remember, in some parts of the world, they don't even have computers. In Australia, we have computers. We're, I guess, a far more developed country. Any guesses? What percentage or how many people in Australia are on Facebook every single month? Anyone? What was that? We're at 16 million active users. That's 66% of Australia's population are actively there. So if 16 million people in Australia are there, and we have something incredibly valuable to share, would it be worth exploring how to be on there, how to interact, how to make even a small difference on there? We might not be able to get 16 million likes to the Adelaide church website, but hey, we could start with 16, right? Now, how does Facebook work? And when I say how it works, this is how it works today, and tomorrow it may change because things change so quickly. But they have a number of algorithms that filter the kind of content that people see. So for someone with quite a few friends, maybe 800, 1,000 friends, you know anyone that has sort of somewhere between 500 to 1,000 friends on Facebook? Yep, some of you might be there, maybe more. So for someone like you would normally, or you should be able to see 15,000 news items or updates every single day, right? Based on having around 1,000 friends or so. How much time would it take you to just keep up with what your 1,000 friends are doing and sharing? It's next to impossible. Now, initially when Facebook started, it was showing you everything that your friends did and everything that you liked. So you know how people go and like this page and they like that page and they like pretty much everything. So every time you like something, it's supposed to show you what that page or that friend is doing. And again, on 1,000 friends, you're at 15,000 news items or updates a day, which is basically impossible. The average person in Australia is at about 1,500 news feeds. Do you think you could keep up with 1,500 new items every single day? Even that is impossible. So what Facebook does is it has some algorithms that filter everything there and only show you about 300 things at most. For most of us, even 300 is quite a lot, right? And the reality is we don't really read or engage with those 300. For anyone that uses Facebook, what do you normally do? You're on your device, and what are you doing? You're flicking up, right? And you're going through really quickly. So, look, you might get through, you might actually see, possibly up to 100, 200, depending on your age. The younger you are, the more likely you are to see 300. The older you are, well, I guess there's a bit of a curve, you know. We're finding that, 30 and 40-year-olds are actually quite active on Facebook. And it's interesting, and that's changing as well. But the reality is that most, Facebook will now only show you around 300 posts. To be effective on social media, to be able to engage with your network and with people in your, in your circle, it's important to what? To get on which list? On the list of 300. Easier said than done. How do we get on that list of 300 when we're creating or posting content? How do we communicate something that we have to share so that our friends or people in our circle, in our community, actually see what we're doing? Any ideas? Sorry? Hack them. Oh, hashtag. You can. Have you ever been... hack them, yeah, that works. That's foolproof. You can't go wrong with hacking. Yeah. Have you ever been tagged again and again and again on things that are absolutely irrelevant to you? Yeah. Someone tags you on the latest laundry detergent that they've just bought. How exciting is that? What do you do when people keep tagging you? Politely. Oh, my list is too long, Got to get rid of a few. So tagging works, but it has to be used very carefully. It's definitely not a way to make too many friends on Facebook. Facebook uses at the moment algorithms that look at 4 key areas before it shows you content. So when I go on my Facebook feed on my phone or on my laptop, Facebook asks some questions. It asks about all the people in my network, who's creating content and how engaged, how much do I interact with that person? Do I send them messages? Do I look at their page? Do I click on their things? So it asks for my network of friends, how much interaction do I have with that particular person? And that's the first aspect of the algorithm. It counts, it calculates, it does this instantly, and it does this thousands of calculations every moment I'm on there flicking. Then it asks, of all my friends that are posting, liking, sharing content, how are their posts performing? Are there others that are liking content? So if my friend Gary here puts a post up on Facebook and nobody likes his post and nobody shares his post and nobody comments on his post, even though we're fantastic Facebook feed every single day because I really want to know what's happening in Gary's life, chances of me seeing his posts decrease the kind of content from my friends and from my network that I'm more likely to click. So if you're one of these people that stop at every single video, you know who you are. What's Facebook going to do? Show me more content from those in my network who are posting videos. Why do you think Facebook cares about the content it's going to filter and send me? Why do you think it matters so much? Absolutely. If I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, it's more likely I'm going to be on there and they're going to make more advertising revenue from it. So that's why Facebook doesn't let me see all 15,000 posts, because it would just overwhelm me and I probably would stop using it. But this way, it says, what's he going to like? If he likes stuff, he's going to be back here tomorrow. And recency. How often and how frequently and when was the last time somebody posted? So Gary, I know he posts. I think he posted last time 2013. So because of that, it's unlikely to show me too many of his posts. And again, there's some exceptions and there's some really complex algorithms. But for those friends of mine that are doing all of these things right, that are getting clicks, performance, engagement, that I'm following and interacting with, if they're posting more regularly, it's likely going to show me information from them more than from others. You know how you're looking through posts and one of your friends has a post and a lot of people are commenting on it, and you click on the comments to view more comments, right? And then you spend about 5 minutes reading through what other people are saying about this person's post. And then after 5 minutes you stop and you look at yourself and you think, I just lost 5 minutes of my life reading what other people are thinking about this, right? But Facebook knows that. And next time, it's going to show you posts from that person, from that friend, with more comments, because that's a way to hook you in. Now, these algorithms have changed over the last few years, and they are going to change again. And Facebook is forever going to change them. So, just in a nutshell, when you look at that Facebook post there on your device, they are the things that Facebook really cares about. Who posted it? When was it posted? What sort of interactions were there with the post? And what was the type of content? Was it a photo, a video? What was it? Have you noticed that the trend now is not just to type something, but to put it in a big, colorful box with big white writing? Have you noticed that? Why do you think they invented that? Because it grabs your attention and you're more likely to pause, read. Facebook even knows if you've paused on something for a split second rather than just skimming through it. So these are the key things. Now, every single platform out there uses something similar. Now, the algorithms may be slightly different. It depends on your age, on your location, on the kind of content, but they all use these mathematical formulas to give you the kind of information that you're most likely to be attracted to. So we're just going to use Facebook as an example now. We have something valuable, powerful, interesting, life-changing to share. What are some things that we could consider individually and then possibly even as a group when it comes to using Facebook to make a positive, life-changing mission impact? What do you think it could be? Speak up so I can hear you, and then I'll repeat it so we can hear it on camera as well. We've just looked at the algorithms and we've said it's really important to work in with these algorithms so we're getting great traction for what we're doing. Let me ask you something. As you're flicking through posts, something to think about. Where are you more likely to stop and read? When your friends are posting something personal, something interesting, or making a comment, or when a company is posting advertising on there? What do you normally do? How many of you just completely ignore what your friends are doing and skip to the companies, organizations, and advertising? How many of you do that? The majority of people interact with what sort of content? It's friends, right? It's social media, not advertising media. So for the very beginning, if you want to create content or interact and engage, what do you think would gain more traction? Posting something from Adelaide City Church or posting something from Pastor Gary Hodgkin at Adelaide City Church? The personal context is far more likely to be engaging than posting something from an organization. And companies know that. Even though a company like Apple or Coca-Cola or Google might have gazillions of followers on social media, do you know what gets more traction? When a celebrity, big companies spend their money to get social media traction. I'll give you an example. Apple. It's not necessarily my favorite company, but it's very high up there. Apple wants to promote some of its products, and it created a little film clip with the actor The Rock. Have you heard of him, Dwayne Johnson? More people clicked on the video because Dwayne Johnson shared it on his social media profile than because Apple shared it on its social media profile. Are you with me? So, what do you think we can do in this space, individually and possibly as a church? Get The Rock? Yeah, I think he's engaged for the next 35 centuries. Remember, your friends want to see what? Your friends are more likely to engage with what? With you. With what you do and what you share. Now, for your friends to see the content that you post up there, what are some ways to get them to see what you're doing? Become addicted to Facebook. I'm going to give you a suggestion. Social media missionaries. And this definitely needs a lot more thought and a lot more work. I'll give you an example a little bit later on what a young Adventist is doing. But essentially doing a few things. Instead of just blindly sharing content, I like this post or I like this news article. You know how at the moment there are a lot of issues, I guess, with gender. And people are sharing and liking and not liking posts. For starters, actually create a comment before you simply forward and share. Because your friends are more interested in what you think about that particular news item. If that's all you've got time, that video, that article, that blog, whatever it is, your friends want to know what you think about it. And they're more likely to engage if you write a one-sentence, one-liner. They're more likely to engage if, and again, I'd encourage you to not spend the next, 12 hours a day on Facebook or social media, but engage with the content that your friends are posting as well. That's relevant and that's interesting. So every time you comment on something that they are posting, it creates a link. It creates a higher chance of them seeing your content because you're interacting and engaging with them. And I'm not going to ask to put your hands up, but many of us are guilty of just consuming social media but never contributing to the landscape. We just flick, flick, flick. You know who you are, right? So just flicking means that when you post, or if you want to share something, or make a comment on what's happening in the world, or on faith, or what's happening at church, or an event that you're doing, it's very unlikely that your friends are even going to see that because they've got no engagement with you. You don't like their posts, you don't comment on anything they're doing, you don't click on anything they have, and so Facebook says, well, you guys aren't really good friends. So why would we show you their posts? So for starters, comment on if you are going to share, and do that. Do share. Do share things that are happening and make a comment on them. You know, there are a lot of amazing videos and articles that are out there in the blogosphere, on the web. You don't have to start from scratch by creating content. You can share, but add a comment there. Here's another idea. Why not create a social media church club? So you've got, let me see, I can see about 600 people here. I'm glad the cameras can't pick that far up into the church. But let's just assume we were going to work with a group of 20 people instead of 600. If 20 of you make a commitment to say, hey, we are going to work on finding some valuable content that talks about faith, that might talk about science, creation, health, that might talk about some of the things that our church here is passionate about doing. And when someone posts a comment, when someone shares an article, what are the 20, 30 of us going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to flick through and say, hey, that's great. Well done, Gary. Keep it up. What are we going to do? We're going to comment. What happens every time you comment to that algorithm? It just goes nuts. It says, wow, 30 people have liked this post. From most of the stuff that your friends are engaging with, very few things have 30 comments. You look at your Facebook feed, right? And look at the stuff that your friends are writing and sharing, the personal stuff. How many things are getting 30 comments? How many? Not many at all. The stuff that's getting comments is the stuff that's shared by, big multi-billion-dollar companies. That's got 3,000 comments, blah, blah, blah. That's not the majority of it. Most of the stuff I see on my news feed, if it has 2 likes, that's amazing. And you know what happens? When I see something that has 30 comments, what do you think it makes me do? Oh, this is interesting. People are engaged here. I wonder what they're saying about this. I wonder why people have paused here to comment, to like, to share. And you don't even have to create that content. Find some fantastic content out there that's produced by the church, by some ministry, by media, by whatever. You create a comment, and then you've got a team, and you're committed to 3, 4, 5 things where you're just going to add a comment. You can create some groups. You can send a message via a group feature on Facebook where when you've done something, send a message to all your friends. Guys, I've just created something. Like, comment, share, interact. And what that is going to do is for all of your friends, and let's say the average person has, 300 friends. There's 30 of us here, 20 of us, 4 of us. Let's say that you've got 20 people with 300 friends, and all of a sudden you've got a post where all of you are commenting, and it's encouraging other church members to comment, and all of a sudden you've got 30, 40, 50, 60 comments. That post is going to appear on more of your friends' page. Possibly hundreds of people are going to see that and engage with that. Does that make sense? Simple? So create a social media missionary club. We used to have the MVs. Do you remember the MVs? The missionary volunteers. Now we're going to have a social media club that says, hey, there are some fantastic things that we want to share. Now, what kind of things would you want to share? Well, we'll talk amongst yourselves and say, what are our friends open to? What are they searching for? What kind of things are our friends and peers out there at work, at school, interested in and communicating about? And you know, because you're talking with them, you're meeting with them, you're interacting with them. What kind of questions do they ask? What do they wonder or think about me? Make a comment about that. Do all Adventists drink goat's blood for communion? Funny, interesting, humorous, comment, share. Do all sorts of things like that. And then when all of your friends like it, because you're all in this club together, if you all like what I'm posting and comment on it, then all my friends are more likely to see it. We're at work, we're talking about faith, we're talking about Christianity, we're talking about gender issues. All of a sudden, our club coordinates together, makes a comment, and now all my friends can engage in a non-threatening way with media, with content that may challenge and encourage their thinking. Does that make sense? Do you think it's too hard? I don't think so. It takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of strategy, and you know what you could do with a church this size? You could get 200 people involved. How many posts have 200 comments? And it doesn't have to be much. Fantastic, great, a bit of controversy, interaction, banter. Really simple and easy to do. Now, Facebook is one platform, and the same can be said for other platforms out there. Whether it's Twitter, Instagram's a little bit different because it's with photos, but Facebook is not the only one out there. There are a couple that you could also work with. There are blogs. Have you heard of vlogs? A vlog is a video blog. So it's when someone, instead of taking the time to write something, goes through the effort of doing a regular video update. There's forums where people chat on different topics. And of course, there's social media. A couple of ways to engage in some of these other platforms as well. Remember, when people want to communicate or to connect online, they are looking for community. So how can we engage and interact in that community to have a lifelong, eternal impact? Well, first, think of some of the things that you're interested in. It could be something professional. You might be part of an association. You could be interested in a particular learning activity. It might be a sporting club. It could be knitting. It could be anything that you're interested in and that you interact with on a daily basis. And look for online communities around that particular theme or topic. If I'm a nurse, I might look for a forum where nurses talk and share about, their crazy nursing experiences, or where nurses go for professional development. There are all sorts of different groups, clubs. I lived in Cooranbong for a few years, and we had a Facebook Cooranbong group with thousands of people on there. And people posted what was happening in the community. Incredible engagement. We moved from Cooranbong 2 years ago. I still spend time on Facebook reading what's happening in Cooranbong. And Cooranbong is a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, but it's still engaging and captivating. So think, what Facebook group, Instagram, forum, blog, whatever it is, can I interact with and start to become part of this community? Not just to consume content, but to actually interact with it. Create an account, put a suitable photo of yourself that you're happy for the world to see up there. And then when people comment and talk and share, start to comment to some of the articles, some of the blogs, some of the videos, some of the other things that people are doing. Can you imagine, say you want to reach out to people and you want to make friends with people, so you decide to go to the local basketball club so that you can make new friends. And you go there for 12 months, you play basketball, you don't talk to a single person at basketball, because you're there to do mission. And then after 12 months, when Pastor Cristian comes to do an evangelistic campaign, out of the blue, you say, guys, come to my church next Friday. Is that going to work? No, of course it's not going to work, because you haven't built what? Friendships, trust. You're not part of that community. You're an outsider. And the same is true online. And we might say, online. Well, the reality is communities are forming online. That's where people are interacting. We know that. The data and the stats are telling us more people communicate and connect online than even in reality, in person. So comment when people are doing things. Contribute. When someone asks a question, I'm part of a radio association for narrowcasting in Australia. 2 nights ago, there's a kid who's about 12 or 13 who has started his own radio station. Fantastic. I think he's up to 3 stations in Tasmania now. This 13-year-old kid is like about this high, and he's a radio entrepreneur. And he had a question about where to send his applications to the government. And he put a post up there, and I saw it, because every now and again I use Facebook. And within about 30 seconds of him asking a question, I gave an answer and contributed. Now I'm interacting with this kid. I'm being part of that community. He was really grateful, others appreciated, and all of a sudden, I'm not just someone there to take, and to sell a product when I feel like it, but I'm part of that community. And I've got a tremendous community in the radio world in narrowcasting, because I meet with these guys, I interact with them. When I fly to Sydney, I catch up with some of them over a hot soy chocolate. But because we're contributing online, not just taking, it really does create a sense of community. So find something, whether it's a Facebook group, a blog, a vlog, whatever it is, comment positively on what's happening there. And when people ask questions, hey, here's my opinion on this. This is what I would do. Here's my experience. And what you'll find is that on these communities, there are people that come and go, people that just, sort of on the periphery, but there's a core group of people that interact regularly. And especially if it's something that is something you enjoy, something you're part of, your work choice, your studies, what hobbies you enjoy, it won't be long before people start to get to know you and they interact with you. And then, give it some time, then you can get to the point where you actually, because people know that you're there and you're not just a leech, but you're actually a contributor to this community, then you do have the right to actually say, hey, we're doing something, or I'm doing something, or I like this, or check this out, or feedback and comments on this. And all of a sudden, you're able to be part of that community where you're sharing and promoting things that are relevant, especially when it comes to faith, to events that you might be doing in your local church or community. You might be part of a health blog. And health is huge. There are so many people out there. Have any of you heard of Sweating with Kayla? Look up Sweating with Kayla. It's huge. A girl from, guess where? From where? No way. Yes way, from South Australia. Multi-million-dollar health empire. And she's created these online health communities. Join one of those and it actually creates physical connection points as well, where they're meeting up, not just online, but in person as well. Then look for opportunities to connect with this group. So essentially, it's the same as joining a local club or group. It's less intensive because you can do it from the comfort of your phone. You don't have to dedicate an evening every week, even though that's a really good option. And it can lead to the opportunities to interact with people in a personal way, to share who you are, and for the opportunity for them to ask questions, to get to know you, to respond to your journey of faith, and long-term to be part of the community of faith here through various events, interactions that the church is running. Does that make some sense? Yeah? And again, not everybody can do everything all the time, but some of us can do some of this some of the time. YouTube. Just a few comments on that. The world's #1 search engine is what? What do people use to search for stuff online? It's Google. The #2 search engine is? Sorry? YouTube. The #2 search engine. That means people are going on YouTube and they're asking questions. How do I wash my laundry? What's the best detergent for this? How do I cook that? What's the best place to eat out? After Google, people are doing searches for pretty much anything and everything on YouTube. In fact, looking at the 13 to 24-year-olds, they are spending 12.1 hours a week on YouTube. And another 8 on streaming video like Netflix and Hulu and HBO and some of the others out there. That's 21 hours a week, 3 hours a day they are spending on these platforms. That's a lot of time. In fact, somebody bothered to figure out how much of your life is spent. So on average, now this is between all ages. So this is from your 10-year-olds, anyone with a device, up to your 100-year-olds. This is how much time people are spending on these different ones. And remember, the younger generation, they're spending 3 hours on YouTube, or 2 hours on YouTube, and then obviously others are spending less. But 40 minutes on average for everybody on YouTube is quite significant. This is a trend that's changing, but at the moment, social media, this is how much of people's lives is being spent on social media. 5 years and 4 months. We spend more time on social media than eating and drinking, and grooming, and socializing, and doing laundry, almost combined. So people are there. And if that's where they're spending their time, wouldn't it be fair to say that there's a possibility that we could have an impact there? Now, we could keep saying, well, let's try the traditional methods. Let's keep doing physical literature. Let's keep doing letterboxing because, it worked 50 years ago. But what's the reality? It just doesn't have the same traction like it once did. How many of you have heard of Justin Koo? Anybody? Justin Q. He's a young Adventist guy, and I say young because he's, younger than 30. That's very young. I mean, he's basically a child. And he worked as a Bible worker in America for about 11 years. 12 months ago, he was doing some online searches on guess where? On YouTube. Because that generation are sometimes using YouTube even more than Google. And he's wondering, how are people using YouTube to share their faith? And he discovered that Adventists are not doing a lot on YouTube. In fact, the 3 most significant YouTubers on YouTube who are Adventist are all talking about the Illuminati and the Freemasons and all that sort of conspiracy theory stuff. That's gaining the most traction. And regardless of what your take on it is, he felt there was a bit of an imbalance and there was a vacuum in Adventists talking about their faith on YouTube. Now remember, kids are spending 2 hours a day on YouTube, on average. That means some are spending 13. But on average, that's the stats. So what Justin does is, he's not a tech-savvy guy. He doesn't really know much about technology. He gets his iPhone and he starts recording videos of himself. And I saw them photos of how he was doing it. He didn't even have a tripod. He'd put his iPhone behind some books somewhere on a shelf just so it would stay. And he'd go at a bit of a distance, run away, start talking. Just him talking to camera on an iPhone. And then after 8 minutes, he'd run back. I mean, he's going on for 10, 12, 15 minutes just talking to the camera. Right? He's created a YouTube channel called That Christian Vlogger. He's overtly Christian, so obviously just in the name. What he's done to be able to get traction is he started to interact with other YouTubers out there. He comments, he contributes, he's become part of the community online. And to be fair, he spends more time than the average person. The last 12 months he's dedicated just to doing this, which isn't necessarily doable for everybody, but there are some things that we can do, and I'll get to that in a minute. And what he does, now he's posting 3 videos every week that go for somewhere between 8 to 12 minutes. And most of his videos ask a question. What do I do in this situation? What do Christians believe about this? How do Christians see this? And he shares from a Christian perspective, very much from an Adventist perspective. Today, 12 months later, he's at 32, you can't see it in the corner there, 32,000 subscribers. That means when he posts a video, 32,000 people see that in their feed. I'll show you some of the questions that he's done. I've rated them in order of how many views he's had, and they're a little bit harder to see on the screen there. But the most interesting one for the age group that he's working with is kissing before marriage. Right? Kids are not asking their parents. Who are they asking? YouTube. And for the very first time, they're in an Adventist on YouTube who's answering that question, and it comes up in the feed. Isn't that a good idea? Instead of just Hollywood being able to answer that question, now, and how many views did he have on that one? What does it say here? In the last 6 months, he's had 88,000 views. Now, that's not the millions like other clips, but for a topic aimed at young people who are asking questions, that's pretty significant. Christian modesty, 84,000. Why you are still single, 79,000. Bible study for beginners, 49,000. 49,000 people. Wouldn't it be good to be able to do a training seminar and 49,000 people turn up? How to do Bible study? Now again, it's not for everybody, and you might not be able to do 5 or 6 or 10 posts a week, but here's a really simple way to do something. Do your friends ever ask questions? Do they talk about things related to faith? Do you ever hear them exploring or commenting? It doesn't take much to get an iPhone or a camera and together as a group, commit to do maybe, I'll do 8 minutes once every 3 months. And if there's 10 or 11 of us, we can build something around a channel or around a person just to comment or to share. It might only be a minute or 2 or 3. But why can't we be on there instead of just Hollywood and just people who are anti-Christianity and anti the Bible? And then when you've created a simple content, simple video, this is what I think about that, then you can share it how? on your Facebook page, and then you've got 300 people at church that are going to like that, and all of a sudden you've created an audience of thousands of people who are seeing, why am I a vegan? Why do I go to church on Saturday? Something as simple as that. Why I don't believe in hell. Simple as that. Really simple questions, 1, 2, 3 minutes, but creating content that's engaging and using the power of 200-300 people here that could share that. Does that make sense? Yep. And again, it's not for everybody, but it's another way, it's another opportunity to interact and to do something. Last one, to encourage and inspire you with Meetup. You've heard of Meetup before? How many of you are using Meetup at the moment? It's a total of none. Download Meetup on your phone, create an account, it's free to do, and have a look through there. What Meetup does is it allows anybody to create a social gathering and advertise it locally. So, if I'm creating, I enjoy playing soccer, but I've got nobody to play soccer with, or I don't know anybody that likes playing soccer. So I create a meetup group and I say, who wants to play soccer Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, Adelaide Park? Does an Adelaide Park exist? I'm sure there's an Adelaide Park somewhere. There has to be. And what that does is it puts it out there, and the hundreds of thousands of meetup users that have ticked sport as a profile get to see this. And whoever's interested says, hey, I might actually turn up. Whether you do a health program, whether you do a social group, whether you do a hike, we're going and doing something together. It's a really simple way to advertise. For someone who's advertising a group, there's a fee. I think it costs about $15 a month to have an account where you're promoting groups. But to join a group or to click that you're turning up to something is free. So you only have to pay if you're a group promoter. A group in Melbourne are using this, and they've actually done Bible study group for young professionals in the city. And they've had anywhere between 12 to 20 people turn up to bring their lunch together and to study the Bible at one of the libraries there right in the city. Now that's overtly Christian, it's overtly biblical, and people turn up. They've done a health one. Exercise for young professionals at this particular time. And it just so happens that there are thousands of people looking for groups to join, and there were a handful that were willing and interested and available to join at that time. So if you're looking for people, what did we say on Monday night? How many lonely people are out there? How many? How many people have? Now I'm testing you, see who was paying attention on Monday. What's the percentage of people who experience loneliness often in Australia? 60%. And how many have chronic loneliness? That means pretty much I'm lonely all the time. Around 20%, 1 in 5 people. So if you're doing something social, something you enjoy doing as a youth group, hey, $15 a month, create a meetup group and put it out there. We're going hiking, we're going skiing, we're going to the beach, we're doing small group on Friday nights, we're doing something, and give people an opportunity to interact and to join. You can create all sorts of categories for all sorts of age groups. There's no limit. So create an account and have a look on there. See what's happening in the meetup world, and it'll give you an idea of what people are turning up to, what they're enjoying. But it's another way to use technology to simply create connections with people that you otherwise may not have met. Take-home point tonight. Spend more time on your phones. Any questions, comments, thoughts? No questions from the camera crew at the back. You guys are the experts.
I do have a general question. Do you think that old ministers should have a Facebook account?
It's not a should, Andrew. It's a must.
Please don't answer.
It's a must. Yes.
Any advice on how to not be sidetracked by social media? Just focus on
I think it's important to see it as a tool, and any tool can be used, misused, or abused. And if you're very clear on why you're there, and have a friend keep you accountable. Reflect on by yourself, am I spending too much time on here? It can get distracting because there's so much stuff out there, and you read this one, you read that one, and you look at the time and it's 3 a.m. and you've got work tomorrow morning. Crazy, right? So if you're finding that, there's no silver solution, but keep yourself accountable, set limits, pray for help. Yes?
This meetup group, is this only available on smartphones, or can you get on your PC?
It's on a website. You can access it on tablets, websites, desktop, laptop, anything as well. If you don't even have the time to create a group, look for groups that exist. It's such a simple way to join with people that have similar interests and make those connections. I'd encourage and challenge you, and I do this myself, think how many new people am I meeting with and interacting on an annual basis? I travel a lot, so it's harder for me to do a weekly, goal, but monthly is more doable. I'm going to aim to make a meaningful connection with a new person every 3 months. You won't find new people to share your faith with to make a life-changing impact if you're not meeting new people, right? So you can use technology, you can use social clubs, you can neighbours, whatever it is. I want to make some new friends. I want to meet some new people. Technology is a very, very good, simple way to do that without you having to think or stress too much. I've gone on Meetup. What do I like doing? I like reading books. I don't like doing much. Wow, there's a group here for people who don't like doing much. Yes?
Potentially, you organise a soccer game, you could have 100 people roll up. What do you do then?
So Meetup has enrollments, and you can set the limit on how many people can turn up to an event. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's got filters, so you can do that. Look, it depends. It's worth trying. The group I know that have done it in Melbourne found that, they had 60, 70, 80 people enroll for something, and about 10, 15 actually turned up. So learn, look it up on Facebook, see what other people are doing, ask questions, join a community. People love helping other people online. When Jesus comes to the woman at the well, the first thing he does is asks her for what? Help. Now, he walks on water. He could have basically just, beamed the water out of the well. But no, he says, you get me some water. So go online, and if you don't know how to do something, join a community and ask, how do I do this, guys? How do I do that? And you'll be surprised at how helpful and how quickly people respond to answer questions. And it really integrates you with that community. You become part of it, and you're getting to meet new people. I know Gary has, been absolutely inspired with so many fresh and exciting ideas. And look, I have to bid you farewell. This is the last time he's ever going to have me here.
Thank you, Christian. Once upon a time I did actually start to set up a Facebook account. My children said to me, Dad, you've got to have friends before you can set up a Facebook account. So at that point, I promptly turned off my Facebook, and I've never turned it back on
Gary,
since.
I'll be your friend.
Yeah, no. Thank you so much for that, Christian. That is that is really good. That's really good. I know this is something that as a church we can certainly learn and grow through. We've tried to establish our website. The pastor uses a little bit of MailChimp, which nobody reads, once a week. No. Some of the old folk do actually read the emails we send out. Yeah, Danny does read it too, actually. In fact, the thing that, I didn't realise how much information you actually get back, even on something like MailChimp. Being able to identify who actually opens the emails.
Which is really good because I send emails to all the pastors and I always look to see if Gary's read them or not.
How many, and what's more, how many times people have opened them.
What they click on.
What they've clicked on. I didn't realise that such stats actually did actually exist. So thank you, Christian. It is greatly appreciated. Folks, let's bow our heads together in prayer just as we finish. Father in heaven, Lord, Thank you for giving us the blessing of ministry. Thank you for giving us creativity to be able to find new ways to be able to share your message. Lord, I just pray that you might bless Christian as he leads in ministry. Lord, I just pray that you might guide in each of our ministries too, that indeed they might be the most effective possible for you. We just ask and pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Good night.